Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Ernesto from Social Work Mentor, and I'm making this video to go a little bit deeper into a topic and a video that I made recently about the intersection of social work and a little tool that you might have heard of. Everybody's talking about it, ChatGPT. Now, in that prior video that I made, I talked a little bit in general about what ChatGPT is, in a broad sense, the implications on social work, what is positive about it, what we need to look out for. You should check out that video. It's on my YouTube channel and on my TikTok. You can subscribe at either place and see the video. But in this one, I'm going to be going in depth about and showing an example about what exactly you can do with this tool. And when you see it, I think you might just be as amazed, as shocked, as happy, as scared, as perplexed as I am. So I hope that gets you interested. So let's get into it and see what this actually looks like. For those of you who don't yet know what ChatGPT is, ChatGPT, it stands for Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer. That doesn't mean much to you or I, but basically, if I were to describe this, I would describe it as Google on steroids and way past that. This is an AI, artificial intelligence tool that has a huge database of all, I don't know about all, but a lot, millions and millions and millions of pieces of information, all text based. So figure everything that's on the internet that Google has access to or any other search engine, it has access and it has taken in all of that text. And when you prompt it, it's in the form of a chat bot or a chat. So when you ask something, it begins kind of like a conversation with you, but a conversation that it is speaking from, I won't say all the knowledge in the world, but a huge internet database of text-based knowledge. Sounds very nerdy and hard to understand, but let me just show you what it can do. And I think that'll be better than any description I can give you. So you need to first sign up for ChatGPT, and once you sign up for it, then you will log on to an interface. And when you first log on, it'll look something like this. So this is what we're going to be looking at. So I have an example up here. To the left-hand side, over here, these are just some things I've looked at, but this is the area where this is the chat here. And down here is a box where you'll enter your prompts or your text. And just ignore this microphone. This is a Chrome extension that I have. Yours probably won't have that, but this is where you will be typing what you want, your prompt, and here is where the chat will occur. So let me modify the screen so we can focus in, and I'll show you what this thing can do. Okay, so I've been playing with this for a few days now, and I started to learn how to use it a little bit. So let me just show you an example of what I came up with and what you'll see that this thing can do. It's pretty crazy. So I entered as one of my prompts this top darker gray box here at the very top, and what I fed the computer, what I fed the ChatGPT AI engine was this phrase or this entry. You're a social worker with a 36-year-old female client who is unemployed, is homeless, uses methamphetamines and heroin, has a 10-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son with different fathers, and has been diagnosed with schizophrenia and ADHD. She's prescribed medication but does not medicate regularly. She has a restraining order on one of her children's fathers. Their only support is the client's 42-year-old stepsister. Now here's where I gave it the command of what I wanted it to do with that information. Develop a 10-step case plan that is thorough and specific. So when I enter that in, I push send, and within seconds, like less than 5 seconds, it began to churn this out. It took about under 10 seconds to kind of type it all out, but this is what it gave me to my prompt of develop a 10-step case plan that's thorough and specific based on the demographics or the information that I gave it. And here's what it gave me. Some examples, I'll read some of them. Assess the client's current living situation and work to secure stable housing for her and her children. Develop a treatment plan for the client's substance abuse, including referral to a substance abuse program and support in maintaining sobriety. Connect the client with community resources such as food banks, clothing assistance, and job training programs. Here's another one further down the list. Assist the client in developing a support system by connecting her with local support groups and resources such as family services agencies. And the last one that it gave me was continuously evaluate the effectiveness of the case plan and make necessary adjustments to ensure the client and her children are receiving the support they need. Now remember, all I told it to do, the only command, develop a 10-step case plan that's thorough and specific. It gave me 10 steps, and it's basically a case plan. Now for some people, this may seem basic and may not seem that impressive, but consider this. This ChatGPT didn't visit with this client. They don't have 6 months of working with them. They don't have the background or the experience or the training, hypothetically, that a real-life social worker would have. ChatGPT had one paragraph and one command, and it gave a pretty decent case plan. It's something that maybe a beginning, early in their career social worker might develop as a case plan, or even some seasoned workers might develop this. So I was pretty impressed right off the top that within literally seconds, I had a 10-point case plan as I requested. It would have given me 5 or 3 items, whatever I requested it, but I gave it a little bit of information, requested a case plan, and it gave me one in under 15 seconds. That's impressive. So then, what you can do in ChatGPT, you kind of ask another question if you want. You like, and it's still all in the same chat. So ChatGPT remembers what the previous thing was or previous items. So next I asked it, what are the 10 main things to consider while assessing this client? So I kind of went beyond just the development of a case plan, but if I'm assessing this client and I'm a social worker, what are 10 things I should consider? This is what it spit out, again, within seconds. Current living situation and housing needs, parenting abilities and support needs, safety concerns, including restraining orders and potential for domestic violence, support system, including family and community resources, cultural and diversity considerations, and how they may impact the client's needs and experiences. So that's taking it a little bit to the next level. It's not only telling me, here's the items on the case plan. You told me she has a drug problem, so put a drug-related item on the case plan. That's maybe kind of simple, even though it's impressive. But this is now telling me more kind of abstract things to consider as I'm doing an assessment on this client. That was impressive. So then I wanted to take it a little bit further beyond just the questions or the things to consider as I'm assessing this client. But now give me a specific tool, ChatGPT. Give me a specific thing that I can do. So I asked it, what are 10 questions to ask the client during an assessment? And in seconds, it gave me a list of 10 questions. Can you tell me about your current living situation and housing situation? Are there any safety concerns, such as restraining orders, that we should be aware of? Are there any family members or community resources that can provide support for you and your children? Are there any cultural or diversity related issues that we should be aware of in order to better understand and support you? So these are now, it's gone from a 10-point case plan based on a couple of pieces of information to now it's giving me specific directions that I can ask the client that I'm working with just based on that paragraph of information. I could have given it a lot more, but I just gave it that. And it's down now, giving me things to think about, things I can ask. So this is like almost at the level of some basic supervision going on here. And if you're kind of a new social worker, maybe you're not getting the support that you may need from a supervisor or a manager, and you need some guidance on kind of how to get started or how to get going on a particular case, this is not too far off base here. Some of these things are things that I might do, or as a supervisor, I might coach my team members to do. So this is pretty close here. So I said, okay, well, you gave me 10 questions to ask during an assessment. I don't really like all those maybe. So I told it, give me 10 more assessment questions. I didn't even tell it to give me. I just said 10 more assessment questions. Based on that, in 2 seconds, it shot me out 10 more. Have you been taking your medication as prescribed for your psychiatric diagnosis? Are there any legal issues that you're currently dealing with? Are you experiencing any difficulties with your relationships? Are there any specific goals you have for yourself and your children that you'd like to work on? So this is now also getting into kind of making sure that the client's needs and perspectives and desires are worked into this casework and this case plan. So it's definitely going into a level that I would work with my team members as a supervisor. And at this point, I'm thinking, all right, again, I gave it one paragraph, and now it's given me assessment questions, things to consider, a case plan. It's giving me real life things that I can use as a social worker working with a client. So that's not it yet. So at this point, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty impressed here with what I've been given. So now I said I wanted to take it to the next level kind of and get a little bit more, I guess abstract might be the word. So I asked it, how should the social worker avoid bias during the assessment? So now this is another level of comprehension, of understanding of social work. And within 2 seconds, it spit this out to me. To avoid bias during an assessment, a social worker should, I'll just read a couple of them, ask open-ended questions and actively listen to the client's responses rather than making assumptions or jumping to conclusions. Use a strengths-based approach that focuses on the client's abilities, resources, and goals rather than their deficits or problems. Continuously educate yourself on diverse cultures, communities, and social issues that may impact the clients you work with. Be willing to admit when you have made a mistake and take steps to correct it and ensure that it does not happen again in the future. As you can see, at this point, I have not at all in any way, shape, or form been able to stump this thing or trick it or make it mess up. And I wasn't trying to, but immediately when I asked some fairly mid to high level questions or requests, it had no problem spitting out legitimate answers, legitimate responses, legitimate suggestions. So then I went to the next level or a related level and I asked it, how should the social worker avoid countertransference during the assessment? Seconds later, be aware of their own emotional reactions to the client and try to identify any personal feelings that may be influencing their professional judgment. Seek out continuing education opportunities and workshops that focus on countertransference and self-care for social workers. Continuously evaluate your own feelings and reactions to the client and make adjustments to your approach as needed to maintain a professional and objective stance. So this is definitely now things that I would talk about with my team that I supervise. And we're talking about a computer here, a chat-based artificial intelligent engine. This is not informed by real social workers. There's no panel or board or team that kind of helps these answers. This is just based on all of the text that's available on the internet that it has compiled this huge database about. So I said, all right, how can it give me some more actions that I can do with this client? How can I apply all this stuff to working with this client? And I asked the engine, I asked ChatGPT, what are 10 positive affirming statements that the social worker can share with this client that are strength-based and lead them to specific action on their case plan? And it gave me 10 statements that I could use in a conversation with this client, strength-based, leading to specific action on their case plan, affirming statements. I appreciate your willingness to work with me and explore different options for addressing your concerns. You have a lot of love and care for your children, and that is a wonderful quality to have as a parent. I appreciate your openness and willingness to share your thoughts and feelings with me. I believe in your ability to make positive changes in your life, and I'm here to support you in this process. And then it went even further, and it said at the end of these 10 suggestions, it's important to note that these affirmations should be tailored to the client's specific needs and situation and should be phrased in a way that is genuine and believable. So the engine itself recognizes that we're dealing now with a very personal, emotional thing, potentially working with the client. And so the engine is telling us, hey, make sure that you bring in the human element. Don't just copy and paste and repeat what I'm saying as a artificial intelligence engine. You need to bring in your social work skills into this. And it specifically calls that out here, which I was impressed with as well. Now, this is taking it from the realm of the theoretical or the potential actions, that you could take with some of this information to a very concrete thing that it was able to produce. So I asked it, or I told it, create a sample case notes entry that the social worker would write after meeting with and assessing this client using professional tone and language that describes the assessment, presenting conditions, case plan developed, and next steps. So within seconds, once again, this thing created a sample case note entry. I didn't tell it, categorize it in a certain way, include certain information. I just said, give me a case note entry based on everything that you've done so far. And it broke it down into categories. Assessment. Client is currently homeless and seeking stable housing for herself and her 2 children, a 10-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. Client has a restraining order against one of her children's fathers, and her only support is her 42-year-old stepsister. So it gave some bullet points of the assessment. I didn't tell it to create that category. It made another category, presenting conditions. Homelessness and unstable living situation, uncontrolled mental health symptoms, educational needs for the children. Then it said case plan. It included the points of the case plan that we had developed. And then it said it included this section at the very end. Next steps. I didn't tell it anything about, taking this to the next level, taking this case into the next pieces of the work that needed to be done. But it created in this case notes entry that I told it to create next steps. Schedule an appointment with a substance abuse counselor for the client. Research parenting classes and resources available in the area for the client. Coordinate with the children's school to ensure that they're receiving appropriate support and accommodations for their ADHD. Again, I didn't tell it to do this. I just said, give me a case note entry based on everything we've done. It created categories, put in appropriate information, and even developed a next steps category, kind of independently of what I had told it, which to me kind of starts getting into the realm of this is a little bit scary, a little worrying. How does this thing know to do this when I think if you took 10 new social workers and told them to do this, I don't know how many of them could do as thorough a job as this thing did. Again, remember, all I gave it was a paragraph of information. So I did that all, and I was just so blown away that I walked away, and, I went about my day. That was in the morning. During the day, I thought it through a little bit more, and I thought about that case plan, and I thought about, I would like, in a real life scenario, I would want to include more of the client's perspective in their case plan and incorporate some of that into it too. So later that night, I just came back to this very same chat thread here. I hadn't closed it, and I just typed into the box again below that many hours later. During a home visit, client identified that they participate once a month in a book club and play in a weekly co-ed basketball league where they have made new friends. They also stated that they have started going to church again and attend social gatherings with other church members on Sundays. The client identified that their goal is to renew their driver's license and move to a larger apartment in the next 4 to 6 months. And then I told it, rewrite the case plan, but include additional goals to reflect this information. Make sure that there are not too many items on the case plan that will make it too difficult to complete. Now, this one was a little bit underwhelming. It basically gave me the same case plan that we had before, and I don't know if it decided to put the case plan in order of priority or just the order that we talked about it on the chat thread, but it put all the same case plan items that we had before, and then at the end it added the things that I had come back with. Identify and connect the client with resources for finding and applying a larger apartment. Incorporate the client's goal of moving to, encourage and support the client's participation in the book club and basketball league, as well as their involvement in the church community. So this one was, I could have asked the question. I gave it a big description, but maybe if I would have phrased my prompt a little bit differently, I might have gotten back something better. But still, it did incorporate the additional information into the case plan. But what was impressive on this last piece was that it said, it's important to keep in mind that the case plan should be realistic and achievable, and the social worker should work with the client to prioritize the goals and make sure that they are aligned with the client's needs and aspirations. So, although I wasn't super impressed with the case plan itself that it developed, the new case plan, I was impressed that it said, hey, it might have recognized this is a lot of stuff here. Make sure that a case plan is realistic and achievable, which is one of my concerns that I would have brought up. And also to work to make sure that the goals are aligned with what the client wants, not just what the social worker thinks would help. So that is a very, I think, significant piece of this. So at this point, I just stopped there. And later on, I went in and I created a few other ones that I'm going to share in other videos. But I wanted to just share this as a first video to show people what this chat engine can do, what this AI tool can do. Now, first and foremost, remember, if you decide to play with this, or certainly when I do it, that there is absolutely and obviously the obligation to not enter at any time ever any kind of personal information. So in this, I just said a 36-year-old female. I didn't use any identifying information because as a social worker bound by the code of ethics, we know that is just off the table completely. We would have no reason to do that. So remember that's off the top. If in a hypothetical world, in a hypothetical scenario, this kind of tool was used for a real life application and not just playing around with it like I was doing here, that's number one, the confidentiality. And the second thing to consider is a lot of what is given here, although impressive and although thorough and very surprising, that the depth and the awareness that it was able to provide on a lot of different stuff, there's still a lot that a social worker would need to fill in. So in most cases, it's highly unlikely that this information, you could just cut and paste it and just do it as it's written. Theoretically, maybe you could, but you wouldn't do that as a social worker. We are the ones who have met with these individuals that we work with, who know them, who understand the nuances of their emotional state, their character, their history, all those little things that we need to understand and incorporate into the context of the work. This thing doesn't have that information, first of all, that kind of big picture information that we have when we work with our clients. And it doesn't really, at this point, seem to have the ability to incorporate that in, but it does have the awareness to tell you that you should do that. So as a social worker, if in a theoretical world you were using something like this as a tool, as a helper, you would kind of just use it as a foundation for developing whatever it is that you're doing, and then incorporate the specifics of your client away from the chat GPT and on, in the appropriate place, in the appropriate manner, you would create this, whether it's on a work database system or in a case file, a physical case file, whatever it may be. But you would use this potentially as a foundation for the work that you're doing with any individual client and just plug in specific information as needed. Right now, a lot of the conversation around ChatGPT is that it's really putting in danger a lot of information jobs. People like copywriters and attorneys whose job is primarily information. Imagine, and I don't have to imagine because I've tried it, telling this thing, write me a script for a television commercial, or write me an email that I would send to people interested in my vacation home seminar, or whatever it may be. Like, there are things that this ChatGPT could do quite easily, and a lot of people who do those jobs are kind of scared right now. As a social worker, there's some scary elements to this of how, I think at least, how good this is at what it can do. But I also feel secure in that if somehow, some way, a tool like this is brought into social work, I think that, and I think the tool recognizes at this time at least, that there are a lot of elements of social work that it cannot do. And I think many of us have known that for a long time. We know that this is a human centered job. We know that there's a human element to the work that we do that maybe sometime in the far future, but right now, it can't be replaced by a computer like a lot of other jobs can. So it's super interesting. I did several other things, a court report, a home visit, several other scenarios that I'm going to make other videos on to show you what it can do. But this was just the first one to give you an idea of what's possible here. I don't know if this really conveyed to you my surprise, my bewilderment, my blown out of the water feelings that I get when I see what this can do. And this was like the first time I tried to do anything. As I've been practicing, I'm learning more how specifically to ask things, because it's the answers that you get are very dependent upon what you ask and how you ask it. And I'm learning that. And so you'll see that maybe in the next couple videos. So make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you see when I put out those next videos. I'm going to be putting out, I think, a lot of videos about how to use this tool. What are the ethical implications? What are some specific examples of how you could use this? So keep an eye out, subscribe, follow me on TikTok. I hope this was helpful in getting you to understand what is going on here with ChatGPT and social work, and I hope to see you in the next video.